Hey, good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. My name is Josh. I'm your host. I'm a deal maker, and I want to learn about deals. I want to learn about the stories and the journeys of fellow deal makers to hear what they've overcome and to hear what they're accomplishing. So, you, the audience, let me put this challenge out for you. If you're listening in and something resonates with you, reach out to our guests and say thank you. All their contact information will be in the show notes below. We're now sharing these on YouTube. So if you're hearing something, you're like, I would like to see what they look like, or how they talk, or how they hold themselves. Like, you could also go over to the YouTube channel. We just released it, and you could watch these if you are a watcher. All right. So with that, Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Right.
it.
Yeah, dude. All right. So let's start with this. Who is Brian? Who are you?
I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a fiercely independent person, right? So if I believe in anything, it's in going out, kind of eating what you kill from a business perspective, and calling the shots and being your own boss, even to the point of like complete wreck out failure, right? I would rather bet on myself and fail forward than, put my livelihood and all of my energy into building someone else's dream. So I'm just fiercely independent in that sense. I like to do what I love. I like to spend time with other people who are also doing what they love. And one of the things that I love the most is really real estate, right? So I just spend all of my time around people who love that, and it's been great.
Cool. Brian, where are you located? Like, where's home for you?
I mean, I'm from Philly originally. Like I grew up in that Allen Iverson era, basketball kid in Philly. I Basketball took me around the world and landed me at Columbia University in New York, and I met my wife there kind of freshman year. We got married out of college, and I've been up in New York. So I'm kind of like an honorary New Yorker. I've been here for maybe like 10, 11 years straight. So I spend most of my time in New York and kind of invest out of town.
Cool. Where's better food, Philly or New York?
Man, that's a tough question because a lot of people who don't know Philly, they don't understand that Philly is like this big food town and has this huge underground of just like I had this Cambodian spot, just a hole in the wall in South Philly, where it's like some Cambodian grandmother's just like making the best food you've ever eaten for $15, family style plates. And it's just unbelievable. New York does have that high end feel. So you want to get like a steakhouse, you want to go to New York over Philly typically, but Philly has that off the beaten path, unique, very ethnic type of foods, very diverse, and the affordability is definitely better in Philly. So it's a toss up. But Philly's a fat city, right? So we got the cheesesteak and the Philly pretzel. So we like to eat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some of the best restaurants are off the beaten path, right? Here in town, the best Korean place is in a gas station. You drive by and you're like, keep going. But if you go in there, it's the best Korean food ever. And it's sometimes overlooked. And
Yeah.
and I'm going to segue that into a conversation today. Your investment strategies are sometimes in overlooked areas, overlooked asset classes, and overlooked strategies. So kind of paint the picture of what we're going to talk about in terms of that was a great segue, wasn't it? Into
Yeah, absolutely.
overlooked asset classes. So kind of take us off,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I think I invest primarily in C class neighborhoods and blighted neighborhoods. I love them because I consider it as like a real estate artist. It's this blank canvas. I mean, you have a ton of inventory. Most of the major cities across the country were built in the 1910s, 1920s. All of these properties are 100 years old, so they need full gut renovation. And here I come with a team, a crew of people who know how to full gut renovate properties, and we can not only full gut them, but now we can reimagine them. We can build these properties into something that it really hasn't existed, a product that is designed for the working class American, and that can address the affordable housing crisis in a variety of different ways, whether that's Section 8, co-living, room rentals, just affordable housing, low income housing. So it opens you up to all of this recession proof, cash flow. And that's where I spend my time. I love the C class because a lot of people don't know how to navigate it. I grew up in the C class, so I'm from these types of neighborhoods, and the profit margins are wider, less competition, better cap rates. So once you learn how to navigate it, it's just like an infinite sea of profitability and opportunity.
Yeah. So let's just get real for a second, right? So a lot of people who, we've interviewed 1,000 people across our different shows, commercial real estate investors, fix and flippers, ranging from multifamily all the way up in terms of real estate. Class C is something that a lot of people avoid. Like when we put
Yeah.
in our deal criteria, they're like class B and above, safe neighborhoods,
Yeah.
right? So this is something that not many people are talking about, but there's a massive need, affordable housing
Massive.
crisis, all these things, and safety, right? So kind of paint the
Yeah.
picture of what this looks like for real estate investors like myself and like my other guests, right? Like, what should we be looking at, man?
Yeah. So I'll challenge everybody to think differently. So in every good neighborhood, there's a bad area. Well, in every bad neighborhood, there's a good area, right?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is challenge yourself to be able to, one, find those good areas that are in these rougher pockets. They're right on the outskirt of gentrification. Gentrification may be happening like a mile away or a half mile away. I want to be a half a mile from that activity in the developing area. This is where I can buy for pennies on the dollar, 10, 20 cents on the dollar, do a full gut rehab using other people's money, do a full BRRRR strategy deal, pull all of my money out and build cash flow, but also have a property that is capable of appreciating. So when I go into the A class, people will say, oh, well, the A class, the appreciation is guaranteed. Yeah, but it's smaller, right? Because what's the chance of a property that's worth $1 million tripling in value versus a property that's I got for 50K or 100K tripling in value? My property is actually going to triple in value faster than yours. So if I buy 10 of these and you buy one or two, my 10 triple in value, your two double in value or go up 50% on a straight line in the A class. I'm going to build more net worth long term. And the real opportunity in real estate is when you get in that rougher neighborhood and then it becomes the B and then the A class. That's where the multi-millionaires and the generational wealth is actually passed down. So I just focus my energy there. I also have kind of a bleeding heart. Like my grandmother's a foster parent. She's been a foster parent for 40 years. My mother's a social worker. I started off in financial planning, working 100% commission. There's something ingrained in us where we just like to help people. And I like to go into underserved communities and really rebuild them. The number one thing to get rid of crime and blight is eyeballs. I call it the eyeball test. So if I take a single mother with 4 kids, Section 8, and I put her into a property that's just full gut renovated in a bad neighborhood, I just put 10 eyeballs in that property. That's more people to call the cops, complain, lobby local politicians, and it runs out blight. What blight and crime loves is vacancy and being able to hide. So the more people you put back into a community, it starts to run away crime. And I've seen this. I've gone into a community and built 200 properties within a pocket and seen kind of crime leave and just find somewhere else. So it's really a navigation issue, learning the city, learning where to find the properties, learning how to screen the tenants differently, because you can't just screen based on credit score. You have to learn other ways of screening and how to protect your properties, your vacant properties. So what I do is just view it as a learning curve. For the average person who wants to get into this, I would recommend like a mentorship, because if you didn't grow up here, you don't know how to navigate it, you could lose money, right? It's just like anything else that you don't understand. But once you have that right mentorship and direction, you can overcome every obstacle. Any obstacle someone lays out for me in the C class, oh, well, somebody could break in, security cameras, steel doors, security guards. There's all different types of things that I can address with that. Okay, done. Well, what about crime and blight? Done. You can solve that. What about people not wanting to move there? It's affordable housing. So in a recession, people are moving out of the A and B class and into my properties because they're more affordable. People choose alternatives. So there's just a solution to every problem. I don't stop at that surface level. I look at problems and say, okay, if we can solve these, there's a big profit, margin behind solving that, especially if no one else wants to do it.
Yeah. So anytime words are used that I don't know what they mean, or
Yeah.
definitions that maybe me or someone in my audience doesn't know, I like to bring that up. But so I just checked on blight. Like I've heard it before. And I was like, what is the
Oh, yeah.
definition? So blight, and I'm just going to read this off: a thing that spoils or damages something. And then the example is the vacant properties are a blight on the neighborhood. So it's something
Yeah.
that it's kind of like a ding or negative effect. So when you talk about blighted neighborhoods, It's just like the beautiful city of X, but don't go across this street or this railroad track or here. Just stay out of that side. But here's the beautiful gentrified this or that neighborhood, right? Uh,
Exactly.
so I'm super thrilled that you're talking about this because investing on the people would say like the other side of the tracks or the other side of fill in the blank street, there's opportunities there and there's a high need. So you have high need, high opportunity, but there's risk, right? There's risk involved investing in class A, B, or C.
Everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to us about, some of the risk of investing in you shared some of the upside, right? The opportunities for this to double, triple, whatever are a lot higher than over here, according to some of the things that you've looked at. But talk to us about some of the other risk of investing over here. You mentioned potential crime, but eyeballs, security cameras, this. What other risk are there?
I mean, there can definitely be there. All of the risks exist in the A and B class. Like you could get a commercial property, right, and still deal with theft. But the likelihood, the probability will increase in a C class neighborhood. So that I would say is a number one risk. I mean, I've been in some of the worst neighborhoods. I've been in West Baltimore's, the North Phillies. Most of the time, and I'm boots on the ground here. People aren't really bothering you. I've been on blocks with drug dealers on the block, and it's like they're essentially approaching you as like a businessman. It's like, look, I'm doing my business, you're doing your business. You don't mess up my money, I don't mess up yours. And it's kind of funny because it's like you would think, oh well, the drug dealers, they're going to run you off the block, and a lot of people are like afraid of this. And I may have been at some point as well, but the truth is, I'm still a civilian. So you come breaking into my houses or messing with me, I call the cops. The cops come shut down your operation, and you mess up my money, I messed up yours, and nobody's interested in that. So I found actually, if you go on a block that has like activity or a lot of people hanging out, there's usually somebody in control of that area. And this is like, I would call this like D class. This isn't even where you want to invest. But if you ended up here, and they're actually going to keep an eye out on your property, they're going to make sure nobody breaks into your property because they don't want extra eyeballs there. They're really afraid of the eyeballs, the extra scrutiny, the cops, and people showing up because it creates monetary loss. So I would say theft is a big one, but you can solve it by just making your house a little bit harder to break into. And there are companies like Vacant Property Solutions, VPS, or Dogs, DAWGS, where if you've seen like pictures of a Detroit house where they're like torching houses out in Detroit and selling them for $1, they'll come with the steel cages and windows and steel doors, and they'll even put a steel guide on the chimney and make sure like nobody can break into this thing. It's not going to be penetrated. So there are ways to solve around things like that. I think from a lending perspective, so if you're trying to deal with lenders, they look at it both ways. So as you peel back the veil of a lender, what is the lender's biggest risk? Diversification. So if they're only investing in A-class neighborhoods in New York and Washington, D.C., and some of Miami and all these areas, when they go to package that debt and sell it to a big land trust or some third party, they're going to look at it and say, look, our book of business, we have enough Miami risk. We have enough New York risk. Now, if I come in with a Philly book of business of 300 properties in Philly and it's scattered around the C class and it's cash flowing, and they know that I know how to monetize that area, I can now diversify a national lender's book of business like nobody else can. And I can do this in Baltimore, and I can do this in Cleveland, and I can do this in all these other sister cities, is what I'll call them, cities that are smaller and that are getting inflows of people who are getting priced out. People get priced out of New York, they go to Philly. People get priced out of DC, they go to Baltimore. So if I can diversify your book of business with sister cities, I'm going to be very attractive as long as the ARVs are there and the cash flow exists. So from one angle, you would say, well, it's risky to invest in C class because a lender, they're going to view it a certain way. But really what a lender is looking for is somebody who can underwrite it and navigate it. If you can navigate it and underwrite it and the money's there, they're going to give you more money. You do well with $250,000, you come back to them, they're going to give you 2. You do well with 2, they're going to give you 20. You do well with 20, they're going to ask you how much can you reasonably deploy in a year? And let's figure it out together. So it really is just overcoming the obstacles. They don't really, the obstacles are more perceived than real. They don't really exist. There's just a bunch of people out there that don't know how to underwrite C-class neighborhoods because they didn't grow up there. They're not from there. They don't know the people, and they don't understand the assets, and they don't have the teams and systems to monetize.
Yeah, bro,
But
I
they
love
want
you.
to.
I love you,
Yeah.
man. This is very cool, and I'm thankful that you're sharing this. Let's get to the bleeding heart, right? You talk
Yeah.
about bleeding heart, but you're also an investor, right?
Yeah.
You're also, there's two sides of this coin, right? You got the bleeding heart that cares for people, but then you got the investor where you got to maintain your, you know, cash on cash returns. You got to manage your ROI. You still got to take care of your wife who
Yeah.
wants some Christmas gifts coming up, right? So
Yeah.
how do you balance heart and brain?
I don't. I find the intersection of doing good and doing good, right? So doing good for self, but doing good for the community. And there is an intersection point there. And that's what I find. So, how does this look? Well, I'm going and I'm rehabbing underserved communities. I'm getting paid well to do it. But while I'm rehabbing, I'm hiring local contractors, people from these neighborhoods. So that's millions of dollars going back into the community. We're putting properties back on payroll for the city. Some property that was sitting vacant, no property taxes, no utility bills. Who works at the city? A lot of people from those communities are working those city jobs, those pension based jobs. So it's creating more money for them. I'm running back. I don't gentrify, I dentrify. So my focus is on adding density to communities versus gentrification. I don't do a lot of flips and run up numbers. With that burst strategy, you're not really creating a bunch of comps. You're just riding off of the existing activity. So my activity densifies it. I call it dentrification. It densifies areas. So I'm adding people back into the community. I'm bringing them back because I go into a C-class neighborhood and I want them to live like they're in the A class. So they got stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors, granite countertops, mini split heat and air conditioning systems. It's world class level. So I want them to live in a product that they otherwise couldn't afford or wouldn't think would be possible. So I'm not just doing like a lipstick, renovation. I'm going in and full gutting these things and creating that A class product in the C class because my profit spread is so wide that I can pour 150,000 into this deal because I can buy it for 20, 30,000, 50,000, and it's worth 300,000 when I'm done with it. So my developer spread is wider, which is back to that blank canvas. I view the C class as the ultimate opportunity because I can go in and buy 10 properties where I could stand at one and throw a football and hit the other one, right? So I can take a crew and just run them through. And that economy of scale that I can do in the C class, I can't buy 10 properties that close together in the A class because they don't exist. There's not enough vacancy. There's not enough inventory. So it gives you this opportunity to scale up that the other markets don't. So as a new investor or somebody who wants to build wealth and become independent, it offers a greater opportunity once you overcome the obstacles. And all of the obstacles were there for you to knock over like bowling pins. Like they don't truly exist. They're scarier in your head than they are in reality.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second. You mentioned gentrification. Let me just read
Yeah.
the definition. Gentrification, the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving
Yeah.
housing, attracting new businesses, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. All right. So that is the definition according to Google.
Yeah.
But you have this new mindset of de-gentrification.
Gentrification. Yeah. It's
Is
my
that in the
word, right?
dictionary? I like it.
No, it's my word. It's something that I kind of discovered. Yeah.
All right. So let's role play for a second. All right. So uh I'm looking for affordable housing, and here's an area, and gentrification's happening, right? Like just all around,
Yeah. It's going to happen.
and there's a bigger gap between the wealthier and the poor, and here me and my family and I are affected by this, and we're looking for affordable housing. So we come have a chat with you, and you said, hey, I've got an option for you. Let's take a look in these areas, and here's the reasons why. And I go, actually, that sounds pretty good, but in your example, you're buying for 20, 40, whatever, doing a full gut, and then now it's worth 300. Now we're starting to work our way out of affordable housing, And is that where you look at co-living and all these other options? Like 300K might be out of someone who's making, the I think national median for uh living wages is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 grand or something for a family.
Yeah, you're going to be on that 6x multiple, which would be kind of the affordability for the average American, for sure. I
So how
would
does
say
that work?
if you're flipping these properties, it's a little, it's a little bit different, right?
Mhm.
But I'm just BRRRR strategying these, so I'm holding them. So when I say affordable housing, I mean from a rental market standpoint. Definitely, if you were buying and flipping and building houses at that level, you would be gentrifying to some degree, because
Right.
the people who can afford that product, unless they're using things like down payment assistance or some of these different programs, and you're helping them to get qualified, which would be a whole different, angle together, which would add the same people back into the community, you would be more in that gentrification bucket. Not that I have anything wrong with gentrification, right?
Mhm.
Because I've seen it at a very intimate level. Like, I've sat at a closing table with somebody's grandma, and this is what's happening in the hood per se.
Yeah.
There's somebody's grandmother. The kids are out. They're gone. Maybe somebody got locked up or they didn't pan out, but they don't have the finances to help out with the house. So grandma's living in this 2,000 square foot, 3-story house. The ceiling's caving in. She can't maintain it. She doesn't have the money. And she just wants to move out and get some money for this asset and move. And there's like a need there. And liquidity will come in and marry that need, essentially. And I don't view that as a bad thing, because I see what that money does, like, for the person. It's not always as corrupt as people will paint gentrification, like, oh, there's these people and they're preying upon people. The people who are selling their houses, not all of them are viewing it that way. There are some people who get kind of burned and scammed, and there's different stuff going on, but not every deal is bad. Some deals just provide liquidity to somebody who needs it. So I'm not super against it in that sense. I don't paint it with like that devil's like brush in that sense, but it's just not what I do by nature. My business model just naturally on the BRRRR end does not do that. It creates affordable housing for workforce people who are driving Uber, Amazon, people who are working jobs making 30, 40K and making that average, but want to live at a $750 a month flat rate rent with utilities included, and are just more penny conscious, especially going into recessions. So it creates that. And then there is some, Section 8 sprinkling in, where you're truly just bringing back, low income housing from a voucher program back into the community. So it's focused on keeping the original footprint of the people there. And as you add more people there, there's more money bouncing within the economy at the local corner stores, the bodegas, the salons, and it's doing well for the economy locally as well.
Yeah. So, oh man, this is going to be because I'm ignorant. Okay. When it comes to, let's just say, how many houses do you have in your portfolio, or how many houses have you flipped or bought, or like, give us an idea on the magnitude of the work that you've done between you and your students or whatever.
Just me, over 300, like
Okay.
over 300 full gut renovations, buy and hold strategy within the last 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
So it's been a bunch.
Cool. So you have experience in this. All right. So
Yeah.
let's just say I'm a new investor and I want to partner with you. I'm like, Brian, let's do some deals together. I like you. I like
Okay.
your style. I too have a bleeding heart,
Yeah.
but I'm afraid because this bleeding heart's been stabbed a few times. All right.
Oh yeah. Mine
Right.
too.
Okay.
Mine too.
So
Yeah.
we're like looking at this and I go, dude, I really want to help people and I really want to help my family. So let's
Yeah.
do it together. But man, I don't know if I want to be a landlord dealing with drugs and crime and drug dealer, like walking down the road, like let's just be honest. I'm just gonna say that I'm a white dude, like me showing up in certain neighborhoods, man. Like
No, I love it.
help me,
Yeah.
Brian, because you're my brother and we're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
But I have these concerns. So how do we
Yeah.
break that down?
So I got approached, right, by one of my mentees, and he says, one of like my masterclass students, he's like, Brian, how do I become you? Like, what's the shortcut? Which is similar to like
Yeah.
your question, which is like, how do I do this, but like at kind of like a distance and do it out of town? I have people in this program I call my boots on the ground program. So this was my solution I came up with. I went in the bat cave and I said, what am I? First off, like what makes me me? And then how can I allow somebody to become me? Can I create a bridge? So I created this boots on the ground program. I have people in it from outside of the country. We have one guy in Ontario. He just picked up his 4th property in about 3 months that we're BRRRR strategying for him. People in Salt Lake City, people, out west and all these priced out markets down south. And what we do is I tap you into my systems and my resources in Philly. We tap you into the lenders, the 100% lenders that'll give you 100% of the money to acquire and rehab properties. So give you all the money, you just pay the friction, the closing costs, the interest. Into our realtors, our wholesale networks, everybody who can bring you deal flow. I have boots on the ground, property inspectors. So if you see a deal you like, after I plug you into my deal flow, my guy runs the inspection. That comes back to my team. We put together a detailed 8-page report showing you the comps, the cash flow. And these aren't just like comps. Like I've dealt with appraisers, like over 1,000 appraisals. So I know how to think like an appraiser, and it's something I teach my people. So comps, cash flow, the best and highest use if we're going to do co-living, Section 8, whatever we want to do, if you want to flip it. And then once we get that deal under contract, put you with the title companies, my team comes in, we full gut renovate the property at cost, cutting out the GC markups. You're paying for materials directly, materials on an Amex, and the cost of labor, daily labor. We track it like a true developer. So we cut out all the markups, pull all the permits, everything done in-house. And then when we're done, tenanted, property management in place. So it's mailbox money. So it's truly passive. And you can do this. My one students who were in this program from Nashville, they locked up their first deal. They got it for under contract for $140. It's 2 stories. We're going to blow the roof off, build up a 3rd level, turn into a duplex co-living. It's going to be worth $575 when we're done with it because we're doing like a zoning conversion. We'll put in a 250,000 into it. So it's a nice little ticket. They're going to flip it for like 100K or so. And they locked up this deal while on their honeymoon in Puerto Rico. And I didn't know that they were there until they told me like after the fact. But the system allows you to do this remotely and just tap into what I have going. So that's the boots on the ground program. And it's been amazing. So that's what I would say is like, the best part about this is you're the owner. I'm not taking ownership of the property with you. Because fierce independence. I can't preach something and then flip it to my benefit. Fiercely independent means ownership of real estate is a solo sport. Real estate's a team sport. I need developers, I need contractors, I need people. Ownership's a solo sport. So I want you to own the property outright. It's just a fee, monthly subscription type of fee for service business, but you're the owner. You get all the tax write-offs, all the benefits, all the credit for the development. So you're building credibility with lenders on a national level. So it's just been phenomenal. So that is what I recommend to people who are like, I want to do this, but I want to do it from a distance. Tap into my boots on the ground program, and you can do this from anywhere in the country, even out of the country, and have a lot of success.
Yeah. That's really awesome. And one of my jobs as a podcast host is to ask the questions that my audience has. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a gap between when the question is being posed to when you were saying something. And I have a problem with your story. All right.
Yeah.
Let me just be honest. These people are on their honeymoon doing deals. They should be doing other stuff, to be honest, man. What? But
people love real estate,
cool.
man. What can they say? I love you, honey. I love real estate. Let's marry. Let's get married.
Do this together, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what a cool story, because I one of the biggest fights in a marriage is about finances, is about time. Right? Time, because if you're commuting 2 hours to work, you're working 8 hours, commuting home, then you got kids and wife, and so time and money is
it's everything.
it is. So you're helping people through your boots on the ground program to do this. And as I was hearing your story, I was like, wait a second, you're cutting out the markups. Like, how do you make your money, dude? Like if you're not
just the service, just the fee, the monthly fee is it. I'm an integrity person, right? So people will also ask me, which somebody listening might think, well, he must be getting a markup from the property management companies, right? Or he must be getting a markup from the lender or getting some type of kickback. I intentionally do not negotiate that and would not take it because my integrity is to my people. So once you become like part of my family, my mentorship program, I'm here for you to the level of, if you say, Brian, I don't like this property management company, I'll just say, let's fire them. Get another one. Like they didn't stop making property management companies when they made theirs. So my integrity is just to my people. It's really, I set it up in a way that resonates with who I am at my core. And I'm just one way. I'm the way that, if people watch this or listen to this and they go listen to another, and then they talk to me on the phone, and then they come to my mastermind call, I'm one way. And it's easier for me to live one way, which is just with integrity and consistent. So I even design my businesses, even though it'd be more profitable to take kickbacks and do all these things that people do, I find it to lack integrity in terms of transparency. So I just don't. And it's just like, it just works for me. And not that there's anything wrong with creating different incentives for yourself, but for me, it doesn't resonate.
Yeah. And I see that we're wearing a similar, you mentioned the Bat Cave, right? And
Yeah.
and if so that makes you Batman, right? But I see you wearing a similar black V-neck t-shirt. That's like the standard issue for
Yeah.
podcast guesting and hosting, right?
Yeah, I put this on right before the podcast. It's like, oh, what am I wearing? Oh, I got to get in the uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so talk to us about this. Like you said, I went into the Bat Cave. Like,
Yeah.
I know that you're using some similes, some whatever metaphors or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, explain what that is to you, because you were thinking through something and you said,
No,
I
it's
went
interesting.
to, right? So explain that to us.
It's interesting. Nobody's really asked me that question, but it's kind of like I am a kind of a flow state type of a person. So it's like in college, like if I needed to write a 12-page paper, I couldn't write it, right? I would write I would write a heading, three bullet points, and then maybe like an outro, right? And I couldn't write it until 2 days before. And then I could just sit down in 6 hours and just flow out like the whole 12-page paper. It's almost as if my mind and my subconscious was writing it while I was walking around and just doing these other things. And then at some point I access that. So I have like this, when I get these challenges, people ask me these questions, how do I become you? Or people are like, hey, can I take you out to a cup of coffee? I want to pick your brain and learn about real estate. And I'm like, man, I got a decade's worth of knowledge up here. I need to put a program together that people can access. I have to access that flow state. So I literally I will work 18-hour days and just lock myself in a room in the basement in the home office and just produce content and put together material and outline and just stream of conscious everything that's a part of this game and how you can accelerate in my entire journey. And that's what my mentorship program is like 100 hours of that, kind of every step from A to Z. But that's kind of my Bat Cave. When I say that, it's like I'm kind of going into flow state to access, because I don't know. You asked me a question, how do I become you? And I have to say, well, who am I? What does that even mean? And that's part of like a flow state that takes you outside of self, because now I'm looking at myself and analyzing as a third party, who is Brian Grimes and what does that mean? And then once I can evaluate that, I can say, okay, now I can piece and connect this thing together so that you can become that third party representation of me and get the results that I'm able to get without having to physically, be on site or boots on the ground in a C-class neighborhood. So it's a challenge that requires me to step out of self and kind of analyze. And that's Bat Cave kind of, mentality for me.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about that, and we're going to get a little woo-woo here together. I got this tattooed on my arm, who am I? And I spend a tremendous amount of time stepping outside of self to go like,
absolutely,
who is God? Who am I? And how do I show up to this world? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know that. Step out of self, look at self and go, who is this person sitting in front of me? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when was there a time, or when did that start to be important to you as a dude? Like at what point did you start to look at like, who is Brian? Or was it all because you grew up playing basketball, you played against LeBron
Yeah.
James? I've been reading your bio and reading up on you. Like
Yeah.
you were a baller, a true basketballer, right? Like
Yeah.
at what point did you start to look at yourself and go, who is this guy for real?
Well, there were two points. One was basketball related. I remember my father was an All-American 400-meter runner at Rutgers, ran the fastest time in college at a point. And I remember talking to him about basketball in college, and he's just like, don't think about basketball unless you're on the court. I don't want you to think about it at all. And I'm like, this is like crazy. But it was, what he was doing was quieting my mind. And I didn't know the power of non-thought, because my whole life I had been thinking about basketball constantly, even when I'm out on the court. And he's like, by the time you get on the court, you're exhausted because you've been analyzing, thinking. So as I stopped thinking about basketball, which was the thing that I thought about, because I'm just this basketball guy, right?
Yeah.
I had no thoughts, but I didn't know this, right? It was completely like Adam and Eve, unaware, like unconscious of what was going on, the transformation. He taught me some breathing techniques. And before you know it, I was in a pure reaction stance on this basketball court, where it was just like things slowed down, things got brighter, like all these weird things. I could see plays developing and all of this stuff happening. And that was kind of my first entry into like 0 point, like outside of self, and just having complete access to infinite basketball knowledge. And every play I had ever done, I could access like instantly and go right into. So that was transformative. And then I got an injury. I kind of got away from that, and I lost access to that state because I wasn't playing. The second time was really like more Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, reading that and starting to understand that. I talked to this guy, if anybody's seen the movie New Jack City.
Yeah.
I run into this guy, Alan Payne, who's one of the main characters next to Wesley Snipes, at a men's health conference, because Alan Payne is from Philly. Yeah. And he's at a men's health conference in Philly. I run into him, and I was listening to some things, and they were telling me, like, don't ask people like what they do, ask them what they read, what they feed themselves. So I bump into him in the hallway. Hey man, what do you read? And he said Abraham Hicks. So I'm like, okay. And I start going down that tangent, and I start meditating daily and really sticking with this stuff. And even to this day, this is over a decade later, I meditate. My day is meditation. First thing when you wake up, meditation, workout, real estate. That's it. There's no vices. There's no distractions. There's no nothing else I want to do. It's meditation, workout, real estate. And even the workout is part of the meditation, because it's all about non-thought and just 0 point access. So it's just a life focus. It might be woo-woo to a lot of people, but I've experienced it in many different ways, and it's it's as serious as a heart attack. Like it's realer than real, and having access to that can really keep you focused on business and your goals, and just out of distraction. So yeah, it's part of my life.
Yeah, but it's so good. It's so good. You're operating at a very different level than a lot of people who, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you talk about the hamster wheel, right? Like we're all on this hamster wheel. Like, all right, we wake up, we got a routine, we dress, we put on our tie, we jump on this hamster wheel, run on a stationary bike, hop on off, get home, do it, and then do it again.
And then do it again.
And there's something that happens in people's lives. For you, first time, I got injured, and now I had to re-look at my hamster wheel, right? Like the hamster wheel looks different when you're in a bed and you blow out your ACL or whatever injury you have. What injury?
Definitely. No, that is what it is. ACL, microfracture surgery. Like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that happened to me. I was a firefighter. I blew up my ACL.
Wow.
I did the triad in the firefighter Olympics, but similar things. Now we're forced to sit. Guys like us, forced to sit, and we're looking back at our hamster wheel, and we're like, okay, I'm looking at my rehab time. I'm looking at my recovery. I'm looking at diving back into the hamster wheel, and you're forced to look at that freaking hamster wheel differently, aren't you?
Yeah, it's different.
I would have, if let's just say you didn't get that injury, and let's just say you're at the top of your game and you're running that hamster wheel, and for you it was basketball, for me it was firefighting, or fill in the blanks of however many jobs I had in my life. Like, if you weren't forced to look at that hamster wheel, where would you be today?
I don't know. I don't think I would be here, because you extract a lot of information from all of these different experiences and adversity and hardship. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be on this path. I think maybe I'd be playing basketball and doing something different, right? And I wouldn't be in this position where I'm having more community impact and building jobs and making millionaires and building developers and kind of doing this stuff. So I'm very thankful that I feel like I was placed kind of in this position to get these messages out and build these types of neighborhoods and think differently about real estate. But I feel like in many ways, I'm right back in the same spot, because with that no thought, there's like no difference in, there's all these external things going on, but I feel the same, like internally. So in many ways, I feel like there's no difference. I feel like that energy, that excitement, that raw excitement, without words or characterization energy, is now applied to real estate. It was in basketball and now it's in real estate. So it feels like the same energy, which is kind of like that truest representation of self that has some characterization, is now in real estate. And that's what it feels like to me. So I just feel like I can express myself more fully, and I can't blow out an ACL in real estate. You might get a foreclosure or some of these things, but you can bounce back from these things. Yep. And you can outthink them and work around them. And you can do this indefinitely and forever. So in many ways, it's like a rebirth into something that I can compete in indefinitely. So it's very exciting to me.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many more questions I want to ask you in terms of energy and self and some of the things that you learned going into your cave. You know, like Freud talked a lot about going into the cave of the subconscious. I think it was Freud or Plato. I don't know. One of those dudes.
Yeah,
I'm not that smart. Right. Right. But I those will be for a future conversation, because we're going to talk, continue on the flow of deals here. When working these deals, but thank you for sharing that. Like, to me, that's super valuable. And there's a lot of deal makers out there who want to level up, and they got to find their self, and they've got to find their flow. They got to find their love of the people that they're serving and such like that. And it sounds like you've uncovered some of that. So I think that's super valuable. And I'm going to encourage our audience to, like, if this is interesting to you and you want to like tap into higher levels and you want to explore, connect with Brian, be like, hey dude, I heard you on Josh's show and I want to connect with you to learn more. But back to deals. Let's this show's called the Deal Scout, right? Like, we talk about learning about deals and finding deals and such like that. But how do you find these kind of deals that fit this BRRRR strategies and that fit this degentrification models? Like, how do you find them?
I look everywhere, right? So I'll go to the auctions. So that's a good place. Going to the auctions, online, the live auctions. I deal with networks of wholesalers as well. Some people say, well, Brian, why don't you cut out the wholesalers? Because they're leverage. And as you scale up and you're doing so many things, you want to keep the main thing, what makes you the most money. And if a wholesaler can bring me a deal, I pay him $5,000 for the deal and I go make 80 grand off of it. That's a great business partner in my book. If he's happy, I'm happy. And I will keep that leverage around. I have realtors who kind of operate in these investor-friendly markets. Not every realtor is going to run a showing on a $30,000 show. So when you find the ones who will, you treat them very well and you give them a lot of volume so they can make money. And, I'll deal with that. And I do some direct to consumer as well. So you might ride down the street, you see a bandit sign, something on a telephone pole says, we buy houses. Well, I have the virtual representation of that. You might be scrolling down your Facebook feed and it says, we buy houses, want a cash offer? And some kid just walked by your house and was eating a bag of potato chips and balled it up and threw it in your lawn. And you're like, today's the day. I'm done with this neighborhood. So you're ready to sell, you reach out, and then you're talking to my team. So it's about, to me, finding properties that have low property taxes, or in areas that have high rents, and they have a developer spread. To me, a developer spread is $200,000. So if I can buy it for 50, it'll be worth 250 as a maximum ARV. I can usually get my team in and out of that deal and make some money. So I'm looking for, at a base level, developer spread. If I buy it for 100,000, better be worth 300,000. And hopefully it's multifamily, so the cash flow can cover and service the debt. I'm also looking for zoning conversions. Can I take this from single family to multifamily? Because now I'm thinking outside of the box. And then when I get into co-living, can I take the rent from $1,250 a month for a 3-bed, 1-bath, and then turn this property, gut it into a 3-bed, 3-bath? Each bathroom can only be accessed through the bedroom. So it's like a master suite. Now I have 3 master suites in this property that I can rent for $750 each. So the rent went from $1,250 to $2,250. So if I'm thinking like that, and you're thinking like the $1,250 guy, I'm going to eat your lunch, because I have a strategy that's outside of the box that can turn the cash flow into $2,250. So I can spend more for that asset. I can outbid you by $5,000 and still make way more money than you. And that gives me a competitive advantage, knowing more strategies than you and thinking outside of the box. So because I'm at a level of thought and thinking outside of the box on zoning conversions and co-living, I can outcompete almost any market in the country, unless somebody's thinking like me. But there's so much inventory, it doesn't matter. Come think like me, and we'll all build together and become millionaires. I need you building next to me, in fact, because that creates more market activity, makes lenders more comfortable, makes owners in the neighborhoods feel more pride, runs away blight, runs away crime.
Yeah.
So these are all good things.
Brian, before you eat my lunch, dude, I like my lunch. Right before you eat my lunch, you mentioned two acronyms. You mentioned the BRRRR method. You mentioned that a few times. I want you to break that down, and then ARV.
Yeah.
I'll do ARV, after repair value. So you buy it for 50, you put money in to repair it, renovation, right? So after renovation, after repair, whatever value, that's what it's at the end. Talk to us about the BRRRR. What does that mean? Or did I explain that right? I just want to
No, you
always
did.
fact check. Okay,
No,
cool.
you did. Yeah.
And then I've done a few, but in terms of the BRRRR, explain what that is to our audience.
So with the BRRRR, we want to buy. That's the B in BRRRR, and we want to buy low, typically. So we have this spread. We want to rehab within that spread. So we want to go in and do our gut renovation or whatever renovation we do. We want to rent that property out. So once we finish the rehab, we want to find a tenant because we want to monetize the asset and get some cash flow coming out. Once we get the tenant in place, we want to refinance out of this deal. So now that we have this cash flowing asset, we can go to the credit union, to the bank, and say, hey, this property's cash flowing. It's worth this, the ARV. So now can you give me a loan of 75% of the ARV? So you can get what's called a refinance or a cash out refi. Sometimes you can get paid to build a property in the form of a cash out refi. And then we repeat that process. So it's buy, rehab, rent, refi, repeat. And that's the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah. And there's a great platform for real estate investors called Bigger Pockets. You might want to have one called the Rougher Pockets, because you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
What a unique branding. So get that before before this podcast goes live. Brian, awesome guest. You are phenomenal. During this interview, there's probably a question that I should have asked you. Besides, like, how could people connect with you? We'll get to that, and we'll do some shout outs to some of the things you're working on. But like, what question should I have asked you that I didn't?
Here's one thing on the co-living. So a lot of people will wonder, like, can I do co-living anywhere? Can I do it in my area? And it's a research-based thing. So how I discovered co-living and that I could do it in my area was I brought together 3 people. One was my zoning attorney. So he knows the zoning guides and kind of the city guides. And anywhere you're at will have a zoning attorney that you can talk to about how many people who are not related by blood, this is the terminology, not related by blood, can live in a single family residence in this municipality. That's the question to ask. And they will tell you and kind of get that information. 2, you bring in your architect. Can I build it? Can I build it to code within the new guidelines or whatever the guidelines are within your municipality? And then 3, and arguably more importantly, is your eviction attorney. Can I evict it? If they don't pay, is there something preventing me from evicting one of the co-living tenants and not all? And what type of lease contract needs to be drafted? Like, what do I need to do to connect these dots? And once you get your answers, you'll have your answers. So it's different in certain areas. In Philly, I can rent to 3 people within a co-living property. So no more than 3 people not related by blood. In Baltimore, it's 4. In Florida, parts of Florida, it's 6. So the cash flow can get really crazy with this thing, depending on where you're at. So do your research. There's definitely ways to build. You can, lean on me and tap in and get a hold of me to, figure out how to access this. But this, to me, is the purest solution to the affordable housing crisis. There are millions of Americans living on their parents' couch or in the basement. There's no low-income housing tax credits. There's no vouchers you need to qualify for. There's no government intervention there. This is the purest form of the affordable housing crisis that we need, and that other countries and places across the world have, and they co-live.
Dude, that's so good. And I know that there's people going to have questions about, like, what do we do about, the co-living environment, the kitchens, the living areas? How do you deal with, maybe there's a single female and a bunch of other dudes? Like, how do we work through the tactical weeds of that? But
Yeah.
we're not going to answer it today on this show. My encouragement is that our audience reaches out to you, joins your program, or learns more about that. Where could people go to do that, to learn more about your strategies and your out of box thinking, which is, I think is, I would say, your across the tracks thinking, right? Because it's so brilliant, and a lot of people overlook that because of fear, uncertainty.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunity there. So where can
So
people
much.
connect with you, dude?
So you can find me on YouTube, Brian Loves Cash Flow. Brian Loves Cash Flow. It's easy to remember because I love cash flow. So on YouTube, you can find me on Instagram, Brian Grimes _247 CFU for the 24/7 Cash Flow University. That's where I put together my entire mentorship program. You can find me on TikTok at Grimes Estate, TikTok, Grimes Estate, LinkedIn, Brian Grimes Real Estate, and all of these different platforms. I backlink to a free training that I put together for you guys on www.workwithgrimes.com/cashflow, workwithgrimes.com/cashflow, where I put together a free training that'll show you how to acquire properties for pennies on the dollar all across the country. You don't want to miss out on that free training.
Cool. Brian, thanks for coming on the show. Phenomenal guest. Really enjoyed having a conversation with you. Fellow deal makers in the audience, as always, reach out to our guests. Say thanks for being on the show. Find out ways to learn from them, with them. They got free training a lot of the times. That's the mission and purpose of the show, is to put people together to do deals, right? If you have a deal that you'd like to talk about, or a deal strategy, and you want to bring it here on this show in front of our audience and in front of our community, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, and maybe we'll get you on the show next. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you all on the next episode. Bye, everybody.